Donny, first of all, really disappointing. Like to see Leinster. I genuinely wanted them to get over the line and win the trophy. And sort of silence a few critics, if you say that, over the last couple of seasons, but it didn't happen for whatever reason. And I've been listening to a lot of pundits, a lot of analysts over the last week since the big loss, and there's the same old rubbish just being regurgitated. About no Johnny Sexton, he'd have made the difference. Well, Johnny didn't play. Johnny played last year. They didn't get over the line last year. Talking about taking your points when they're on offer. Like, they didn't take their points on offer a couple of times, and they actually scored a nice try off one of them. So it's easy just to go back on that and say, oh, they should have taken their points. But for me, it's about consistency in your performance over the last 6 weeks. And I think Toulouse, out of their last 8 games in all competitions, won 7 out of 8, and they lost one game away to Toulon by 1 point. And you look at Leinster's last 8 games away, humiliating defeats in South Africa, come up to Belfast, get well beaten, even though the scoreline probably didn't reflect it, well beaten in that game. And then they have to prepare to go into a Champions Cup final with lads who didn't play for 2 weeks in South Africa, had and more or less a non-existent game against the Ospreys, winning by 60 odd points, and you tag Furlong at first receiver and putting in kicks down the touchline, and everybody thought that this Leinster team, was the best thing from sliced bread. And then all of a sudden they come up to Ulster, albeit a slightly dramatically changed team. They get well beaten, and then all of a sudden you're going, okay, well, how much rugby, competitive rugby, has this team played over the last couple of months? The big game against Northampton, yeah, Leicester, okay, but you know, for me, at this stage of the season, it almost feels like you need to be playing more rugby. So at the start of the season, what do we always say about Rugby World Cup cycles and about when you get into the tournament, you want to be peaking at the right time. And Leinster have not really been tested, maybe in the second half against Northampton, with their first string team, but they haven't really been tested most of the season. And when they get to the peak, right to the top, that's when you want to be. You're most consistent, you're most fluid, you're most energetic. Everybody competition for places. It almost feel like when Leinster get to this stage of the season that Leinster split into two teams. You have your URC team that goes and plays just to try and hold the fort, and then you have your A team that plays in the quarterfinals, plays in semi-finals, plays in the finals, gets all the plaudits, and then unfortunately the last 3 years have bowed out. So that's only my take on it. Graham Rowntree said last year the only reason Munster won the URC is because they had 8 games on the bounce. They had to play the same team week in, week out. They were battle hardened, match fit, ready for anything, could go to war with any team. When the chips were down, they knew they could fight back. Why? Because they did it week in, week out, week in, week out, training week, training week, training week, training week. And I know people pick up injuries along the way, but that's only my opinion on it. I might be completely wrong, as might people that are saying that kick 3 points every single time you have a penalty, or this because there's no Johnny Sexton there and Ross Byrne didn't play that well, or Anton Dupont just stole the show, whatever it may be. That's just my opinion on it. That when it gets to this stage of the season, it feels like the Leinster side is more or less picked for every single quarter final. No competition for places. Everybody talks about the competition for places in Leinster. Is there competition for places? I'm not so sure there is. I'm not so sure there is because all the lads that are playing for Leinster are playing for Ireland. So if they're fit, they're going to be playing for Leinster. So we talk about this huge competition, huge competition. I'm not really sure there is. So and that filters down into training. You see him guys holding bags every single week when it comes to the crunch big games, the games, the biggest stage. You have the same guys holding the bag every week. And for me, that's I know what happens in every team. I've been involved in teams that you have your starting 15, 23 players that are, better than the rest of the squad. But this Leinster team have shown over the course of the season that there are other players like Frawley who played brilliantly against Munster, who maybe deserved a chance during the season and didn't get it. And he finds himself in the bench week in, week out, being a bit part player in this Leinster side. But I think everybody can see that he needs to be in there. Like, he needs to be there. Jordan Larmour, huge admiration for him. And like, he didn't play particularly well. Jimmy O'Brien, should he have come back in? A few other question marks in the pack, especially around Maloney. Obviously a quality operator. He didn't get put into the second row. James Ryan, who hasn't played all season really. He comes in and comes off the bench. Doesn't really make a huge impact either. So, like, it's yeah, that's only my take on it. I know I'm repeating myself, but it just feels that, look, they were one drop goal away from winning it, so we wouldn't be having this conversation if Frawley had knocked that drop goal over. But that's professional sport. Now we're starting to pick the bones of why they didn't win it. And my own personal view is that maybe there's not the same competition in training and on the pitch as we all might think, and the team seems to separate a little bit when we come to this part of the season. No, it won't be easy for them, and they'll certainly be hoping that the Bulls go away to the Sharks this weekend and don't turn up on the Sharks. Well, obviously they're off the back of a Challenge Cup win. They're secured in Champions Cup for next season. It doesn't really matter; it's a dead rubber for them. But it's a must win for the Bulls, and if they win that game, I think they'll probably need a bonus point maybe to secure that second spot. Then the likelihood is that Leinster, whoever they play in their quarter final, will be at home. They should win that. You would back them to win that, and then would have to go away to South Africa to play the Bulls if the Bulls come through their quarter final, which would be at home as well. So yeah, it's a tricky enough season for Leinster, and it was only 3 or 4 months ago. Everybody was just talking about Leinster going to do the double. They're so strong. Such quality depth in their squad, and now they lose a final. As you rightly said, they put all their eggs into this basket to try and get this trophy, and it didn't work out. And now they're having to pick themselves back up again. But I'm I find myself being critical of Leinster, and I ask myself, gee, Stevie, like they've reached so many finals, and yes, they haven't got it across the line. Like the other teams in all the competitions would bite your arm off to be given a chance to win or have an opportunity to win a trophy in a final. And Leinster keep getting there and keep getting there. And like you got to give them credit for knocking on the door every single season in both competitions. And it's hugely disappointing for all the players and the coaching staff not to be able to get over the line. But I think we they just they always come with so much expectation, even from me as an Ulster fan. Like, looking at Leinster, you always expect them to win every single week. It's like it's like Manchester United, isn't it? You expect them to win every single week, even though they're sitting sixth or seventh in the league for some odd reason, just because they're like they're the sort of benchmark and bar that every team is sort of aspiring to get to over the next 3, 4, 5 years, or the previous 3, 4, 5 years. They're always trying to get to that team, and Leinster are that team. Like they are the powerhouse, like Toulouse. They are the two rugby powerhouses in European rugby, and nobody can batter an eyelid about that. So, yeah, give them credit to getting there, but also they got to they got to change something. This can't happen. Can't keep happening every single year. Something has to change. Something has to change. I don't know what it is, but I've given my opinion on it and a few things. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, last round of URC fixtures will determine, where Leinster will probably play their semi-final rugby. You can guarantee that Ulster will not want to finish seventh in the competition and probably have to go to the Bulls a long old trip to South Africa in a quarter final match. So I'm not because of the way the Ulster fixture is, the Edinburgh Benetton fixture is before them, the Lions Stormers fixture is before them. And I think the Ospreys one's before them as well. So they will know exactly what they need to get out of the game to secure their preferred opposition in a quarter final. Granted, it's going to be away from home. So I think they would probably like Munster away or Leinster away. Good travelling support, go down and get behind them. And then their pro derby, always, a good tussle. Um, Ulster seem to have Leinster's number this season, home and away. So if they could sneak into sixth, or stay in sixth, then happy days. If there's a couple of results go against the way that they want it, and they have to go to Munster, and if they win, they're just going to stay in seventh, say, then they'll probably not want to win the game. Like, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that, just the way this fixture might pan out. And yeah, like Richie Murphy could actually, before the match kicks off, make a raft of changes to his team.
Mm.
Bring a big squad down there, bring 30 players down there, and all of a sudden, just before the whistle blows, there's 6 academy guys playing.
Uh,
So yeah, it's gonna be a cracking last weekend. It's very, very tight, which is what we all want, not just for the top four, but for there's going to be an unlucky team that slips out. And keep an eye also on the Lions. They could go to the Stormers and get a result. They've been brilliant over the last couple of weeks. So they're a dark horse to maybe nudge one of the other teams out above them.